Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. As members make their way, we'll get started on this presentation by Assemblymember Gonzalez on item number 5 on the calendar, AB 1366. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Chairman, first I'd like to accept the committee amendments and thank them for the work on this bill. AB 1366 would extend the provision in the Public Utilities Code preserving the legislature's oversight of voice over Internet protocol and Internet protocol-enabled services rather than letting these policy questions be turned over to cumbersome regulatory agencies. It would also provide new protections for consumers of these services by establishing a 72-hour standard for restoration of services after a reported outage, in which steps to restore the service must be initiated within 24 hours. It creates an option for a bill credit to customers when service has not been restored within 24 hours. It requires a disclosure regarding backup battery needs for VoIP and alternatives which exist, including the right to basic service. And it requires that complaints from VoIP customers received by the CPUC be included in a report to the legislature and a report to the Attorney General for possible enforcement action. In 2012, the legislature codified a policy of reserving any state regulation of VoIP and IP-enabled services for the legislature. Since then, Californians have continued benefiting from these services, which offer innovation and low prices. For communities like mine, where calling home means placing a call to a foreign country, IP-enabled services are an essential part of staying connected without having to pay costly long-distance or international telephone bills. However, the clarity provided with the legislature's exclusive authority over these services will sunset January 1st, 2020, unless legislative action happens now. The legislature is also best poised to set policy for these services. We think it's much better than an agency that's proven itself too slow to act in a timely manner. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. And just members, every single member of the committee was provided kind of an attachment with the amendments that have been proposed, the committee amendments. So if you haven't had a chance to review them, which we can go over them at the request of every member. I know some members have already gone through them with a fine-tooth comb. So you have members of your presentation, if you can introduce them.
Les Shepard, on behalf of the Nonprofit Alliance, we're pleased to support AB 1366, legislation that maintains the legislature's current role in protecting consumer safety and shields vulnerable nonprofits from unnecessary data cost increases. AB 1366 is a straightforward bill that simply removes the sunset on a law that disallowed the Public Utilities Commission from regulating the VoIP and IP-enabled services that are vital to nonprofits in the state of California. AB 1366 maintains all current consumer protections and empowers the legislature to take further action to expand digital opportunity and protect the interests and rights of consumers. Technology availability and affordability is paramount to keeping the doors of nonprofits in California open. Nonprofits rely on access to affordable data. If the price of data skyrockets, as we believe will happen if the PUC is allowed to regulate the internet, charities will have difficulties in absorbing these costs. We use consumer data and third-party data providers to ensure our marketing messages are delivered to those most likely to benefit. Without affordable data costs, nonprofits cannot effectively connect with donors. Current law has worked well, allows for consumers to be protected, maintains the legislature's power and authority, and shields vulnerable ratepayers like charities from unnecessary cost increases. If this law is allowed to sunset without further legislative action, this will create an environment of regulatory uncertainty and potential for costly litigation on all sides, potentially delaying further expansion and innovation of these services, as well as creating real-life cost pressures that can cause economic uncertainty for those with no profit margin to absorb the new costs. We respectfully request your aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Ann Bernstein.
If you could put the mic a little bit closer so we can...
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
A little bit closer, we can hear you.
Okay. And I'm here on behalf of the Urban Core of San Diego County in strong support of AB 1366. At the Urban Core, we serve as a bridge to a better life for young adults age 18 to 26. We provide paid job training, a second chance to earn a high school diploma. As I said, our organization serves as a bridge to a better life for young adults. That's why I'm here today. New internet technologies and services are helping create that bridge for the young people we serve, and I want to see that continue. Access to new technologies is vital for the young adults we serve in San Diego. Our youth use the internet to stay connected to friends and family, access healthcare, education, job opportunities, and other resources. And I know the policy in place today is working, and I strongly encourage you to extend it. Our core members all use mobile phones, tablets, and other services. These technologies are vital, and perhaps most importantly, they're popular because they're either free, low cost, or they're portable. These technologies are improving the lives of low-income and underserved Californians. We've all had a sort of less than perfect experiences with some of the larger agencies managing technology. And today we don't have a government agency putting itself between people and these choices. So in my opinion, this is a success, and making them more expensive or harder to access would be a step backward. Because of this, I hope you will support this important legislation.
Thank you. Any other speakers in favor?
Members of the committee, Members of the committee, Bill Devine representing AT&T. We're here to support the bill. Thank you.
Members of the committee, Wanda Williams, Center for Fathers and Family, local nonprofit organization. We are in favor of the bill.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm Gary Passmore, representing the Congress of California Seniors. We strongly support this legislation and ask for your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sergei Terepkov, President of Slavic American Chamber of Commerce, and strong support. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Carolyn McIntyre on behalf of the California Cable and Telecommunications Association in support.
Heidi Barsuli on behalf of Verizon in support.
Good afternoon, members. Glenn Fuji, National Executive Director of APAPA, strongly support AB 1366.
Good afternoon. My name is Preston Dickinson. I'm the owner of Preston's Telecom Consulting, and I strongly support AB 1366.
Good afternoon. Steve Terry. I am the Executive Director of the Oroville Rescue Mission, which is a donor-funded nonprofit. I strongly support AB 1366.
Good afternoon. My name is Edward Poche. I'm Program Director of the Oroville Rescue Mission. I strongly support AB 1366.
Good afternoon. Charlie Boying with Frontier Communications in strong support.
Misty Johnson with Nielsen Merckxmer on behalf of Comcast in support.
Good afternoon. Jinky Dollar, OCA Sacramento Chapter President, and strongly support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Jesse Bermudez with Asian Resources, a local nonprofit here in Sacramento. Strongly support.
Good afternoon. I'm Edwin Lombard, the interim president of California Black Chamber of Commerce, and we're in strong support of the bill.
Good afternoon. Cameron Dimitri with TechNet in support.
Good afternoon. Aziza Davis Goins, President, CEO for the Sacramento Black Chamber of Commerce. We're in strong support.
Mr. Chair, members, Steve Carlson for CTIA, the Wireless Industry Trade Association, in support.
Pam Loomis on behalf of Consolidated Communications in support.
Afternoon, Teresa Anderson with the ARC and UCP California in support.
Chanel Hawken with Cox Communications in support.
Cornelius Burke with the Bay Area Council in support of this bill.
Mr. Chairman, members, Michael Delbo of the California Rangeland Trust, also in support of the bill.
Bless Shepard again on behalf of the Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce in support.
Anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition to the bill?
Good morning, Chairman Host and members of the committee. I am Tom Runyon, and I'm proud to serve as Vice President of CWA District 9, representing over 60,000 members in California. Over the past few years, our workers on the front lines of the telecommunications industry have been hearing directly from consumers regarding problems with their phone service. Our members have also witnessed safety issues with phone lines that have been neglected due to lack of proper oversight and regulation. Unfortunately, our workers do not see these issues getting any better without the state intervention, something that current law prohibits. The deregulation of VoIP telephone service under SB 1161 has led to significant gaps in consumer protections. Traditional landline telephone customers are able to file a complaint with the CPUC, and the Commission can take action. They can be sure that outages will be restored within 24 hours. They can assume their calls will be answered in a reasonable time. Unfortunately, VoIP users have no such assurances. AB 1366 only offers lesser or no protections. CWA technicians working in the field see the disparity firsthand. They prioritize restoring traditional phone service while VoIP customers are left waiting. This is fundamentally unfair, especially considering that most customers have no idea they have been switched to VoIP service in the first place. Unlike in 2012, the majority of home phone service would now be covered by the provisions of AB 1366. CWA has long supported policies and protection of consumers and hold telecommunication providers accountable for their infrastructure and service. By extending the provisions of SB 1161 until 2030, AB 1366 would ensure that many of the issues that our workers have identified become further entrenched. This would give telecommunications companies a further reason to ignore the needs of their customers. Now that a majority of phone customers in California are on VoIP, with service providers switching over more people every day, it is time that the state ensure that consumers do not lose the protections they enjoyed under their previous phone service. The defeat of AB 1366 will restore critical protection for consumers and public safety protections as well. If you pass this bill, you are telling millions of residents that the state of California will not protect them. CWA and its members have seen the problems firsthand and believe it is time for the CPUC and the state to take back their authority to protect Californians. We strongly urge that you oppose AB 1366. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wessel, Senators. My name is Martha Guzman Aceves. I'm a commissioner at the California Public Utilities Commission. At our last public meeting, the Commission voted unanimously to oppose this bill because we believe the state has an essential role in ensuring access to safe, reliable, and affordable communications infrastructure regardless of technology. For the last 2.5 years, the Trump FCC has eroded access to affordable, fair, and equal access to the internet and communication services. Yet this bill proposes to eliminate all state jurisdiction and leave the provisions of essential access to the FCC and the free market. As you can see in the map that I asked the Sergeant to hand to you, we know that millions of Californians do not benefit from any competition in the communications marketplace, that hundreds of thousands have no high-speed broadband access, and a third of Californians, 13 million approximately, do not benefit from any competition. This is an oligopoly. It's not a free market. This bill prohibits the state from guaranteeing essential and reliability communication services to all Californians simply because the infrastructure has been upgraded. It will eliminate programs to ensure infrastructure access to rural Californians, to the deaf, to the disabled, and to the poor. Within it comes, the state is not, this basically is only because they've changed internet protocol services and the state is not interested in ensuring universal access. The bill is not about stifling innovation or apps like Skype. This bill is about deregulating the companies that own and manage the poles, wires, and radios in California. Companies like Comcast and AT&T, not these apps. Under this bill, these companies will be left to their own sense of social responsibility, not government oversight, their own decision-making on what the critical issues should be, whether they should participate in universal service programs like Lifeline. AT&T, the state's largest carrier, has decreased its participation by 90% in the last decade. They'll decide which communities receive the next generation of technologies like fiber, like 5G, like 10G. They'll decide whether or how quickly infrastructure is repaired or upgraded in poor communities and rural communities. They'll decide whether they address complaints from local governments and your constituents. They'll decide where they build wildfire-proof and disaster resiliency into their core infrastructure. They will decide whether the service they provide is reliable and redundant so all Californians can reach 911 dispatchers at all times. They will decide whether they coordinate with the IOUs and local governments to prepare for disasters, to respond to disasters, to recover from disasters. These issues are fundamental. They are too important for the state to abandon its role in. Fire season is here again. And while the state has scrutinized other utilities for their reliability during increasingly devastating disasters, it has not done so for the communications companies. Yet wildfire and other disaster preparedness, response, evacuation, and recovery hinges on a reliable communications grid. And it's essential for all utilities. It's the backbone for power, it's the backbone for water, and of course for communications. There are too many communities in high fire hazard zones with real concerns that they will be the next Coffey Park or Paradise. We need to know if their networks have backup power, defensible space, and redundant backhaul, that there are emergency preparedness plans, that local responders know where their critical infrastructure is to incorporate into their response plans and recovery. We must identify, strengthen, and protect the vulnerable parts of our networks because bringing in temporary facilities on wheels or wings will always be too little too late. The Commission has looked earnestly to prepare California, whether we sought to adopt consumer protections for victims of disasters, to require utilities to prepare for disasters and response, or to develop protocols for de-energization events. And this statute has been the barrier to enacting uniform procedures across all utilities. We know that the telecommunications infrastructure is failing. We have seen it in our service quality reporting. We saw it in Santa Rosa and in Paradise, and in our network exam of AT&T and Frontier's network from 2010 to 2017. This exam shows, whether deliberate or not, that AT&T investment policies have favored higher income communities and have thus had a disproportionate impact upon the state's lowest income areas. We found a clear inverse relationship between household income and all the principal service quality metrics. Network hubs with the lowest household incomes have the highest trouble report rates. They have the longest out-of-service durations. They have the lowest percentages of outages cleared within 24 hours. The opposite is true for the highest income communities. This law has caused harm by preventing access, degrading the universal service programs, and preventing preparedness and resiliency. It should sunset. Californians need their government to ensure that they have reliable communications, and this law prevents the modernization and development of the protections that all Californians need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers in opposition? Get some mic power there.
Jason Barajas with the Green Lining Institute, and we oppose this bill.
Tara Diaz-Andres, representing the Public Advocate's Office, formerly the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. We remain strongly opposed to this bill, given that 50% of the population of telephone customers are on VoIP and IP services, and 53% of the outages that occurred during wildfires last year were over VoIP and IP-enabled services. Thank you.
Mark Tony, Turn, strongly oppose this bill. Make sure when it comes to wildfire safety, we don't tie the hands not only of the PUC, but of OES, CAL FIRE, and the newly formed Wildfire Safety Council. Thank you.
Rachel Wallace with the ACLU of California. We oppose the bill.
Sylvia Solis on behalf of the Boards of Supervisors for the counties of Humboldt and Mendocino, as well as the city of Santa Monica, in opposition. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Tracy Ryan, Rural County Representative of California, and on behalf of the League of California Cities, in opposition. Thank you.
Joy Deffenbaugh, volunteer for AARP, representing 3.3 million of our members in California. We are strongly opposed to this bill. It's bad for consumers. It's going to cost lives.
Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the Consumer Federation of California in opposition.
Eladio Saldivar, Communication Workers of America. I'm the political director here in Sacramento. I am also a technician and woefully opposed to this bill.
Ernie Pacheco, CWA 9412, Hayward, in opposition.
Sean Merchant, CWA 9432, Rural, Placerville, strongly opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Mitch Steiger with California Labor Federation, also in opposition.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Roger Dean, Communication Workers of America, President, Local 9431, representing Placer, Nevada, Sierra, Yuba counties, the rural areas which will be harmed by this bill. I'm strongly opposed. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Christopher Roberts, President, CWA Communication Workers, San Diego. We're also opposed to this bill.
Jesse Arana, San Diego, California, CWA 9509, oppose.
Sean Heap, Southern California, Northern California, 9400, opposed.
Stan Santos, I'm a technician with AT&T and CWA representative, but I'm also a member of the San Joaquin Valley large groups of farm workers and rural communities who are going to be affected very negatively by this. Thank you.
Adrian Acosta, Communication Workers of America, Local 9003, and also District 9, opposed.
Any other speakers that would like to provide testimony on this bill? Support, opposition, tweeners? Okay. On this bill, there are strong arguments on both sides, both coming from our state's regulatory agencies and consumer advocates, but also from the industry that makes claims that this is creating more competition and that our regulatory system often takes years to deliberate, causing enormous harm to the industry's ability to stay innovative. And we're the innovation state, so it's important that we find ways to encourage that innovation. I also, in this bill that was originally passed, there was a reporting requirement that the CPUC that required the CPUC to report to the legislature on the complaints, and that has been an area where the CPUC also has been somewhat lacking in reporting to the legislature, and they are, of course, our regulatory agency, and that is a function that's very important, especially in getting us to understand whether there are complaints associated with this program. And so we thought in hearing kind of the testimony from the opposition and also from the supporters that we find a way to strike a healthy balance that advocates for consumers, that addresses some of our emergency response needs through our Department of OES. We consulted OES to see how we can solve that problem. So our author here today has agreed to accept these amendments. The amendments will clarify that OES has the authority to regulate the terms and conditions of Next-Gen 911 services, and that, of course, is a very important issue, especially with the state facing wildfires and an increased need for emergency response. We worked with OES to develop this language to ensure that they have authority to ensure that they are provided with the ability to respond in case of emergencies. Also, we amended the bill's sunset date to 5 years, and hopefully that will not impose an undue burden on CPUC to be part of this process to report complaints. We expanded. We've worked a little bit more on expanding the annual reporting requirements that we asked of the CPUC. which include require the CPUC to report complaints to the Attorney General, require the CPUC to annually report on the number of complaints, the number of resolved complaints, and the average duration for complaint resolution based on reports from telecommunication providers. Having this information is essential to ensure that the telecommunications companies are responsive to consumer complaints. We also have a reporting requirement informing consumers that if they have any complaint associated with their service, their bill, their quality, that they should report that to the CPUC. That is a requirement that's included in this bill that will inform people what their rights are as consumers and through what mechanism they need to follow through so they can get their complaints resolved. That will hopefully be a very strong requirement to ensure that the telecommunications companies are working hard to satisfy their customers. It also requires the CPUC to identify trends in consumer complaints and provide the legislature with recommendations for addressing these trends. So we're asking the CPUC, and we're going to ask them for the next 5 years, should this bill move forward, should it be adopted into law, to work with us in the legislature. Should we see a rise in consumer complaints or a trend in certain consumer complaints or certain trends in telecommunications providers avoiding service in certain areas, the legislature needs to know that. And we are partners in this effort. We are partners in the regulatory effort. We need the CPUC to be a partner in their effort to provide this information to the legislature. It also, our amendments would remove exemptions from and establish enforcement requirements for the portions of the bill establishing backup power notification, bill credit, and service restoration requirements. And the final one is an amendment. There's two more, one that eliminates codification of certain past CPUC decisions, and also a clarification that the CPUC has authority to establish and enforce COLR and basic service requirements on a technology-neutral basis. We have worked very hard on these amendments and worked very hard to ensure these amendments will have the teeth necessary to advocate for not only the consumers, but for our public safety personnel that are working very hard to be responsive in case of emergencies. And we believe that unless we have any other comments from the committee, I believe this is a really good start to continue on with a program that appears to have been working so far, and still find that balance, as I mentioned, on providing those consumer protections. We're going to begin with Senator Rubio, if you'd like to make some comments or questions.
Well, first of all, I want to